Hello class and welcome to Chapter 5. In this lecture we're going to be talking about supply chain management. So let's get started. Supply chain refers to the links or all the organizations that are involved with getting a product from raw materials into the hands of the end customer. So that could involve mining for minerals, iron ore, whatever raw materials that go into it, shipping those materials to the manufacturing plant where they're then molded and sculpted into, fabricated into items that can be used and assembled and placed together. Then it goes to the distributor who then gathers all the products together and mails it out to, could be end customers or ships them to retail stores. It includes the retail store which ultimately sells the product. So if you look at the image here on this slide below, you'll see that everything from raw materials to manufacturing, fabrication, distributor, all the way to the retailer. This entire process is considered supply chain management. And when we talk about supply chain management, we're really referring to how well does a company manage every element, every company in that process. Every hand that has to physically touch that product in order to help it get out to the customer. As you can imagine, this could lead to a substantial competitive advantage for organizations if they manage this process extremely well. There's a lot of technology that goes on. There's a lot of communication that goes on, a lot of scheduling. It is a very complex process. Depending on the type of business, it could be even more complex. So supply chain analysis refers to spending time to examine each component in the supply chain and how that component functions with all the other aspects that it touches. Is it functioning efficiently? Is it communicating well? Are there areas where we could do things better to drive out costs, to improve time, or to help improve quality? Imagine if you're shipping food products. If you could take 2 or 3 weeks off of your shipping time, that would help with the freshness of the food. So every component involved in this process has to be managed and tracked successfully. You can look at supply chain as upstream and downstream. So depending on what company you are, if you're UPS, then you're one of the distributors. You're helping to ship the products out, and you want to look at your supply chain for your company. If you're Sony, then you're the manufacturer, and you're looking at the entire supply chain from raw materials all the way to the retail stores and where the product is going to be sold at. So when we say upstream, we're really looking at manufacturer going up, the manufacturer going up to the retail store, where the company is manufactured to how it's distributed, how it's shipped, how it gets into the distributor's hands, how it ultimately ends up in the retail store, and then ultimately to customers. When we're talking about downstream, we're really talking about the reverse. We're looking at it from the customer perspective going backwards. The customer buys a product from a retail store, say Walmart or Toys R Us or Target. Well, what was the process that involved in getting that product to Target or to Walmart? And we're going to go down. We're going to follow that value chain down. The center of gravity refers to the most critical part in the supply chain. If this one part were broken, everything else would fall apart. As you can imagine, a chain, every link is important. But what we're looking here for is the most critical component of the supply chain. And we call that the center of gravity. So it's important when you're evaluating the supply chain to examine the product line in terms of all the activities that are involved in creating the product or service. You examine the linkages between each of those components and examine their synergies in areas where you could drive out costs or improve efficiencies in order to help the company function better. Well, that wraps it up for supply chain analysis. If you have any questions, be sure to email them to me or bring them to class if we're having physical class. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to study.